Hello and welcome to Lesson 8 Grammar. For this video, I'm just going to explain to you each grammar point that we have in order for you to absorb what we have already discussed in the classroom or during class. So for Lesson 8 Grammar, again, this is just continuing from the previous lessons that we have in the first semester. So this is with the expectation that you can read and write hiragana and katakana, and also that you have a basic understanding of Japanese grammar of noun wa noun desu, so on and so forth. Okay, so for lesson 8 grammar, of course, we're going to have adjectives. Adjectives are used as predicates and noun modifiers, and they inflect and are divided into two groups, e-adjectives and na-adjectives, as you can see here, according to the inflection. It depends on how they sound. If we want to be more concrete with our examples, let me just show you. For example, we have in our vocabulary list, I'm very sure we have for e-adjectives, right? E-adjectives over here. Let's have takai, takai. We also have tanoshii. We also have yasui. We also have, let's see, we also have omoshiroi, omoshiroi. Okay, we have takai, tanoshii, yasui, omoshiroi, and so on and so forth. So this inflection, they end in E. However, not all, okay, let's note here, not all adjectives that end in E are E adjectives. Because there are some adjectives that end in E, but are considered as na adjectives. For example, okay, example here is kirei. It ends with E, but is not an E adjective. This is a na adjective. Okay, so but fundamentally, right? Fundamentally, E adjectives are adjectives that inflect in a way that it ends in E. And then we have na adjectives, right? Na adjectives. For example, we have shizuka, shizuka. We have nigiyaka, nigiyaka. We also have what else do we have for the na adjectives? Of course, we have kirei, kirei, shinsetsu, and so on and so forth. So these inflect in a way that don't end in E and would need na at the end if, we'll discuss this later, but it ends in na if followed by noun. All right. So that is, those are the adjectives that we have here, E adjectives and na adjectives, depending on how they inflect or how they sound. Okay, let's continue with the lesson with the slides, right? Okay, First off, we have noun wa na adjective des and noun wa I adjective des. Okay. So you can see here, des at the end of an adjective sentence shows the speaker's polite attitude toward the listener. If you remember from our first semester classes, we did discuss that des is a polite ender. Okay, so it's a polite ender. You are showing that you are being polite toward the listener and that you respect them and you are talking in a way that shows that you respect them. And then an E adjective with E at the end, okay, untouched, just E adjective, just takai, yasui, and stuff like that, comes before des. Okay, so right after the adjective is des, and then whereas na adjective without na comes before des. Now we have here an example. Watto sensei wa shinsetsu desu and Fuji-san wa takai desu. Let me dive into this real quick. Okay. Okay, so we have here noun wa na adjective des for first. Okay, first is noun wa na adjective without the na des. Now this is let me just change the color real quick of my pen. Now this, right, this part here, I have repeated this quite a few number of times, but this part here is the predicate of the sentence. Okay, this one is the topic. And if you guys remember, wa means it marks the topic of the sentence. Okay, so wa here, I know that this is hiragana ha, but it as a particle, it is read as wa. So noun is the topic, wa is the marker of the topic, and then na adjective des is the predicate. Now predicates usually in Japanese end with this. Okay, affirmative wise. Usually and in this. Okay. Positive. Alright. And then we have here the na adjective. So the adjective here is used as a predicate. Okay. So again, there are two uses of the adjectives. It's either adjectives are either used as predicates or used as noun modifiers We will explain this later, the noun modifiers part, but for now we are going to focus on this, okay? Noun wa na adjective des. For example, we have there, Watto sensei wa shinsetsu desu. Now, Watto sensei, okay? Watto sensei. Let me mark the marker here. Wa, okay? Shinsetsu desu. Okay? So, this here is the noun. Watto sensei is the noun. Wa is the marker. Okay? That this is the topic. topic of the sentence. And then we have shinsetsu, which is a na adjective without using the na. So you can see here, it's just shinsetsu. We're not using na. And then, of course, our polite ender of the sentence, this. Alright? So that is noun wa na adjective without the na, this. Another example could be koko wa nigiyaka desu. Okay, shinsetsu means kind. Right? Kind. Okay. Koko means here. And then nigiyaka means lively. Okay. So we have here koko is the noun or the topic. Wa here marks this as the topic of the sentence. Nigiyaka is the na adjective without the na. And then we have this. Nigiyaka means lively. It is a na adjective. But in this case, since des follows the adjective, the na adjective, we don't use na. Okay, let me just write it here to like hammer it in. We don't add na after na adjectives if they are used as predicates. Are followed by this. Okay? Because essentially, the adjective here works as a noun. If you remember our very, very first grammar point, noun 1 wa noun 2 this. For example, I am a teacher. Watashi wa kyoshi desu, or watashi wa sensei desu, right? Again, kyoshi is teacher, but if you're referring to yourself, you say I am a teacher. Watashi wa kyoshi desu. But if you're referring to somebody else, you refer to them as sensei. Okay, teacher, profession, kyoshi, sensei, teacher, sensei, the way you address somebody. Okay? So, this is the very basic grammar form that we had in the first semester, and this is lesson 1. Okay, so we have here the na adjective replaces this one, right? So essentially the na adjective here works as a noun, which is why we don't use na after the na adjective, because des follows it. Okay, again, na adjective without the na usually is followed by des. Okay, so noun, which is the topic, wa, which is the particle we use to mark the topic, na adjective without the na, des. Alright, okay, now we move on to the next part, which is the same grammar shape or grammar form, but we are going to use e adjectives this time. Okay, the second is noun wa e adjective with the e at the end, this. Okay, in this case, again, noun, topic, wa, marker of the topic, e adjective des, predicate. For example, okay, let's have an example. The example we had in our slides is Fuji-san wa takai desu. Fuji-san wa takai desu. Okay, so Fuji-san here. Fuji-san is the topic or the noun. Wa here marks it as a topic. Takai, this is the predicate. Now this part, I, just means that we use the I adjective as it is, okay, without change. So takai on its own. After that we have this, okay. Fuji-san wa takai desu. Fuji-san is high, okay. Fuji-san means Mount Fuji. Okay, Mount Fuji is high as a mountain. Takai. Takai, okay? So once again, for na adjectives, for na adjective, we don't use na if followed by this or used as predicate. For I adjective, use as is. Okay, so we have these two. Noun wa na adjective without the na, this, and noun wa I adjective with the I as it is, this. Okay, now we continue with our slides. We have here ja arimasen. Okay, na adjective, ja arimasen. I'm referring to this part. Okay, the negative form of na adjective, na without the na, des, is na adjective ja arimasen or na adjective de wa arimasen. We have a sample here. Asoko wa shizuka ja arimasen. Now this is exclusively for na adjectives, okay? Let's deep dive. Alright. Okay. So na adjective without the na, ja arimasen. Now, essentially, ja arimasen, if you guys remember in our first semester's classes, ja arimasen means not and replaces this. Now, on principle, right, if we're using na adjective and it is followed as with this, we do not use the na, right? Okay, so it's the same principle applied in ja arimasen. If you want to change the form of the na adjective into a negative form, you use ja arimasen instead of des. Now let's have the example that we had. Okay, we have here asoko wa 静かじゃありません。あそこは静かじゃありません。Okay. First off, again, あそこ means over there. This is the topic of the sentence or the noun. Alright? Wa, particle that marks this noun as the topic of the sentence, and then we keep circling back to our first principle. This is the predicate. And this one means not quiet. Okay? Again, okay, if we are going to transform this into positive form, it's shizuka. Shizuka. Shizuka means quiet. Okay? So, if you want to make this into a positive sentence, you say, あそこは静かです。Right? And what happened here, we made it into a negative form by replacing this with じゃありません。Okay? So, あそこは静かです。It's quiet there. Make it into a negative form. あそこは静かじゃありません。Okay, so that's how you transform a na adjective from positive to negative. We have, let's get other examples, shall we? Okay, so other examples include 親切, the one we had earlier. 親切です, right? 親切です, which means kind. How would you make this into a negative form? You say 親切じゃありません。親切じゃありません。Okay? Again, just a reminder, if we're making the na adjective a negative form, we don't include na, same principle, and we replace this with じゃありません. Okay? Replace, okay? Replace this with じゃありません. Now take note, okay? Take note. This is a quick note for the hiragana. じゃ, ji plus ya is jiya. Okay? Jiya. But if you see here, the ya is small, so ji plus small ya equals ja. Okay, make sure to be careful with how the hiragana is written. So this is clearly small ya. So if it is a small ya, that means it can be merged into one syllable with the previous syllable. For example, here we have ji, and then we add ya. It becomes one syllable, ja. Okay, just so we're clear. All right, so that was na adjective but negative form. So again, we replace this with ja arimasen. We replace this with ja arimasen. We also still don't use na. Okay, we don't use this one, na. We still don't use this as long as it is followed by des or ja arimasen. As long as the na adjective is followed by des or ja arimasen, we don't use na. Okay, I hope that's clear now. Now let's continue with our slides. Let's go to negative form of e-adjectives. Okay, so to make the negative form of an e-adjective, e at the end of the adjective is altered to kunai, from e to kunai. Okay, for example, we have here この本は面白くないです. This book is not interesting. この本は This book is 面白くないです. Not interesting. Okay, and then there's a note here that says the negative form for いいです is よくないです. よくないです. Alright? Okay. Let's deep dive once again on this part. Alright. Now we have here what second part is e adjective as it is, right? Used as it is. E adjective くないです. Okay. For example, we had この本はこの本は面白くないです. Okay. Again, topic marks the topic. Predicate okay. この本 okay, this book is not interesting. Okay. 面白いおもしろい面白い面白い means interesting. Now to make this negative, we put 面白くないおもしろい let's say 面白い we transform it or we alter it into negative form. We remove the e and then we replace it with くない okay, replace e at the end and add くないくないくない okay, くない面白くない楽しい楽しい fun 楽しいくない楽しい楽しくない楽しい楽しくない We also have 高い高い高い right? Tall high expensive. Takai. Scratch that out. Kunai. Okay. Takai. Takakunai. Okay. Kunai. So that is the negative form of our e adjectives. Again, for negative form of e adjectives, Okay? Replace E at the end with kunai. Kunai. Okay? Replace E at the end with kunai. Again, let me state the examples that we have here again. Omoshiroi. Negative form is omoshirokunai. Omoshiroi, omoshirokunai. Tanoshii, double I, tanoshii, tanoshikunai. Tanoshii, tanoshikunai. We also have takai, takakunai. Takai, takakunai. So that is how you set the E adjective into a negative form. Now, continuing on our next part of our grammar lessons, we have questions using adjective sentences. If you guys remember the question form, right? You add ka after the sentence, right? Okay. Now let me set the tone for this one. Okay? So questions using adjective sentence are made in the same way as those using noun or verb sentences. And when we answer the question of an adjective question, you repeat the adjective used in the same question. So des or so ja arimasen cannot be used. Now we have here, in our previous lessons, we had noun 1, wa, noun 2, des, right? If you want to make it into a question, you put ka at the end. Okay? So this is the question marker or question mark here. Question mark. Now, for example, we had here Peking. What number is this? 5. Okay. Peking. Beijing. Peking wa samui desu ka? Peking wa samui desu ka? Okay, again, right? Topic. Marker of the topic. Predicate. Ends with this, right? That's the predicate. And then we add here question. Question mark. Right? So we have Peking wa samui desu ka? Now, samui means cold. Beijing. So, if we translate this literally, we put Beijing is cold, question mark. Of course, we make this grammatically correct. We say, is it cold in Beijing? This is just purely out of context, okay? If you're familiar with translating or interpreting, you don't exactly say it word for word when you are translating something. For example, kung sa aton, in our case, right? When we are trying to express somebody's thoughts in another language. Like for example, Ilonggo siya, gahiligaynon siya, and then you want to translate it into English. You don't exactly translate it word for word, but you translate the context of it so that it's more understandable for the listener. Okay, so this is how it is formed from Japanese to English. There is no one like direct translation of a sentence. There can be different ways of translating a sentence from Japanese to English, and it is entirely up to the context of the sentence. Now, 北京は寒いですか? 北京, Beijing, は is 寒い, cold, ですか? Question mark. Is it cold in Beijing? Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, 'diba? We don't answer this with そうです or そうじゃありません. そうです means that's right. Okay? So this, that's right. So, じゃありません. That's not the case. But we repeat the adjective. Repeat the adjective in the question sentence after confirming that yes or no. So we answer this as はい寒いです。はい寒いです。Okay, so this is the adjective used in the question, right? So we repeat it when answering. Okay, now what if you say, no, it's not cold? How would you say that? You say, いいえ寒くないです. Because this is an E adjective, right? This is an E adjective. It's an E adjective, which means that we replace E with kunai to make it negative. Okay? いいえ寒くないです. If it's hi, 寒いです. 寒いです. いいえ no, 寒くないです. 寒くないです. Alright? Okay, continuing on our next sample sentence, we have number 6. Okay. 琵琶湖 Lake Biwa の水はきれいですか? Okay. 琵琶湖の水はきれいですか? Now again, topic or noun, marker of the topic, predicate. Question. Okay. So if we want to translate this, this is Lake Biwa, and then this is water, and then this is clean. Now this is one of those adjectives that end in E, kirei, but is not considered as a na adjective, because if you make it into a negative form, and it is an E adjective, it sounds wrong. You say kirei, kirei kunai, it doesn't make sense. So it is used as a na adjective. Okay, so the question here is the water of Lake Biwa clean? Okay, clean is kirei. Okay, the answer here is iie, kirei. How would we make the na adjective negative? Ja arimasen, right? So, iie kirei ja arimasen. Oh, this is not ma. Arimasen. Arimasen. Kirei ja arimasen. No, it isn't clean. Now if we say yes it is, we say hai kirei desu. So, reminder how to make the na adjective into a negative form. We replace des with ja arimasen. Okay? So, making an adjective sentence into a question means just adding ka at the end of our very basic grammar form, noun wa adjective des. Okay, so from noun wa adjective des. Okay, from noun wa adjective des to noun wa adjective des ka. Okay, this is question mark. Okay, hopefully that is clear now. Let's continue on our lesson. Our next part of our lesson is na adjective and e adjective used as a noun modifier. Okay, a noun modifier. An adjective is put before a noun to modify it, to basically expound on what kind of noun it is. So we add an adjective, for example, beautiful girl, handsome boy, delicious food, and so on and so forth. So that is how we usually use our adjectives, right? So right before a noun. Okay, so this is the same in principle. Now we have here, for example, Watto sensei wa shinsetsu na sensei desu. Now this is where na is going to be used for na adjectives. We also had Fuji-san wa takai yama desu. Okay? let's dive in. All right. First is, okay. Oops. All right. First we have na adjective. Na and, right? So we have here the first form. Kind of overshot that a little bit. Okay, first form that we have, na adjective, na, noun. Okay, Wato sensei. Wato sensei wa shinsetsu na sensei desu. Okay, Wato sensei wa shinsetsu na sensei desu. Now let's focus on this second part of the sentence, okay? This part. Shinsetsu, adjective. Na adjective. Marker for na adjective. Sensei, noun. So this is where it is at, okay? Na adjective, na noun. All right? So we use note. We use na, okay, for na adjectives when the adjective is used as a noun modifier. Essentially, if it is followed by a noun. Now you can see here, shinsetsu is followed by sensei, which is a noun, which means we use na. Other examples include shizuka na, shizuka na machi, nigi yaka na hito. Okay, what else? Yumei na eiga. Okay, you see here, the pattern is, this is noun, this is marker of this adjectives. Okay, na adjectives, na noun. Okay, it's as simple as that. So basically you just use na when we are using the adjective as a noun modifier, or, okay, to make it simpler, we use the na after the na adjective if it is followed by a noun. Okay? Okay. Next up, we have I adjective. Okay, Fuji-san. Okay, I adjective as it is with I at the end, noun. Alright. Fuji-san. Fuji-san wa takai yama desu. Okay. Takai yama desu. Okay, now again, let's focus on this part. Okay, so takai is the adjective, and this is the noun. So for adjectives, use the adjective as it is if followed by noun or this. So either way, it is used the same way. Okay? So whether it is used as a predicate or if it's used as a noun modifier, we use it as it is on its own without removing the e. Okay? It's an entirely different concept from na adjectives. So adjectives, you just use it as it is before the noun or the des. Okay? So other examples. Kawaii onnanoko. Let's say kawaii kodomo. Or yasui tabemono. Or we also have oishii. Oishii nomimono. And we have takai toke. If you guys remember, toke was from a very, very old lesson that we have from previous lessons from first semester. Okay, kawaii kodomo, cute child. Okay, cute child. Yasui tabemono, cheap food. Oishii nomimono, delicious drink. Takai toke, expensive watch. Okay? So we're using the adjective as it is, and then followed by the noun. Alright? So those are the adjectives and na adjectives followed by a noun used as a noun modifier. Again, when we are talking about na adjectives, so na adjective, na noun. Okay? Na adjective, na noun. Adjective, adjective, noun. So those are our focus for this one. Now, what if we want to put it negatively? Okay, not. Okay, let's go back to na adjective. Na adjective, na noun. What if negative? Right? What if negative? For example, Wato sensei. Wato sensei wa shinsetsu na sensei desu. If you remember in our previous grammar form, if we want the na adjective to become negative. Okay, the na adjective we have here is shinsetsu na. Okay, shinsetsu na. If we want it to be negative, we replace this, okay, for na adjectives, replace this with ja arimasen. Okay, so in this case, we need to replace this with ja arimasen. So we will say Wato sensei wa, as it is, shinsetsu na sensei ja arimasen. Okay, so that is how you do it, how you make it into a negative if it is being used as a noun modifier. Okay, so you don't touch this part. You only replace this part and transform it. So basically, if we see here, this part until the this, it's all the same. Okay, all the same. From here to here is the same. We just replace this with ja arimasen. Okay, as for the e adjectives, okay, same way. What if negative? Okay, what if negative? We do Fujisan wa takai yama desu. It's basically the same way we make an e adjective that is considered as a predicate, or if it's followed by des, diba? We use the same principle. So we focus on the e adjective itself. Everything else is untouched. Okay, untouched. Focus on the e adjective and it becomes Fujisan wa taka. Remove the e, replace the e with kunai yama desu. Again, this is the focus here. So this part was replaced by this part. Takai becomes takakunai. Takai, takakunai. Again, this part is untouched. Untouched. Yes. Those are adjectives that we discussed. So let me go back to our previous ones. Okay, again, adjectives are used as either predicates or noun modifiers. Okay, they inflect and are divided into two groups, e adjectives and na adjectives according to inflection. So the sentence form is noun wa na adjective without the na, des, or noun wa e adjective as it is, des. Okay, and we also have na adjective negative form is you replace des with ja arimasen. So na adjective ja arimasen, still without the na if it is used as a predicate. Okay. Now, e adjective, as it is, remove the e, replace with kunai. Noun wa, e adjective, kunai desu. Okay? And then next we had desu ka, the same way. You basically just add ka at the end of the sentence. Noun wa, na adjective desu ka. Noun wa, e adjective desu ka. And then when you answer this question, you repeat the adjective. Hai, adjective desu. Iie, adjective negative form. For example, again, okay, for na adjectives, hai, kirei desu. Iie, kirei ja arimasen. For e adjectives, hai, samui desu. Iie, samuku nai desu. Okay? And lastly, we have usage of adjectives as a noun. Okay? So, we use na adjective with na if it is used before a noun, and e adjective with the e if it is used as a modifier or if it is followed by a noun. Okay? Now, if we want to make it into negative, na adjective, na noun, ja arimasen. Okay? Just take note that if you want to make the na adjective into a negative form, you replace the des part, from des to ja arimasen. However, in e adjectives, if you want to make it into a negative form, you replace the e at the end with kunai. So those are adjectives. I will separate the video for the other grammar points or the other topics for this lesson, and I will see you in the next one.